Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. I'm your host, Kenny Bedwell, and today we have a super special episode. I have a special guest here where we're going to talk about the two-door strategy. Look, a lot of people want to own a lot of short-term rentals. They want to be really successful and have all this money so they can leave their W-2s or cut back or do all this. But the reality is you might actually be closer than you think. And so I have brought on a special guest. She left her W-2. She was in the medical professional space, highly successful. She's a coach, mentor, real estate investor, probably a serial investor now, wants to buy an island, which is insane. And she's going to share with us not only her strategy to cut back, but also how she left her W-2 and the confidence she had to do so. I'm super excited to have her on here and for her to share her insights. So without further ado, Dr. Rachel, share us or tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, so Kenny, little girl from Haiti, raised in the inner city of Miami, aka the urban center. When I was growing up, I was taught all about faith, all about family values, and I really took it to heart. And I really wanted to go into a healing and helping profession. So went on, got the doctorate, did the whole thing, but yeah, $500,000 in student loan debt later,
Oof.
I realized, oh my goodness, what have I gotten myself into? So my husband and I, between the two of us, we both burned the candle at both ends to try to pay down that debt. We were diehard Dave Ramsey fans. We were going for it. We were going for gold. I know. But at a certain point, I saw myself kind of climbing that ladder on the wrong building because oncoming train, it wasn't necessarily the light at the end of the tunnel. That wasn't the light at the end of the tunnel for me. What was the light was, okay, I am working so hard to get to this zero net worth. And I know, Dave, I'm supposed to be excited about it, but it didn't sit well with me. Something didn't excite me about that. So I found myself taking off my Dave Ramsey hat and putting on my bigger pockets hat. And I got to tell you, the rest is essentially history. I'm a spreadsheet girl. I spreadsheeted every single transaction that I heard on those episodes. I spreadsheeted the strategy, the resources that were leveraged, the time capital, and so on and so forth. And I realized quickly, okay, real estate is the path for me, but I can't really do it the way that they're saying to do it. A mom working in medicine with a whole husband, 2 kids, 3 dogs. Yeah, I'm not going to buy, a 20-door property that's cash flowing $75 a month. It just did not sit well with me. So always tweaking and going a little bit off of script is my mantra. And I found that I was a part of the We Buy Pretty Houses mantra as opposed to the We Buy Ugly Houses. I did not want to fix and flip. I did not want to wholesale. I did not want to do multifamily investing or syndications. I needed not passive income. I needed aggressive income. And that's why short-term rentals really sat well with me. And yeah, I'm a huge cheerleader for it.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. And what I know, publicly, the stuff that you do and interactions, you kind of do a lot of stuff with real estate now. You have a lot of MTRs.
Yes.
Maybe I'm just limited of who I know out there, but I kind of call you the queen of MTRs. It's like, because you know a lot about MTRs. We're not going to talk about MTRs because it's not what I do, but maybe another episode if people are like, hey, let's talk about that. But you do MTRs, you have STRs.
Yeah.
Are you doing boutique hotels too, or what else?
Not yet. My goal is to eventually launch a wellness retreat. That is my big, hairy, audacious goal. Purchase an island where my burnt out medical professionals, they can come in burnt out.
Island. Wow, that's awesome.
I know.
Okay.
Little girl from Haiti. Listen, dirt poor, but I'm putting it out there. So if you guys know of a good deal on an island, holler at your sister.
Good deal on an island. Yeah. Seller financing needs to be seller finance, right?
Seller finance all the way. 90% seller finance. I'll put 10% down.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so let's circle back. Most of the listeners, they're going to have 1, maybe 5 properties, some no properties yet. And they're listening and they've got either W-2s or maybe they're self-employed, but most of them are W-2 earners. They don't have a lot of time, but they want to be in this game to get that. I love what you said. It's not active income. It's aggressive income. I love that. All of that. So let's talk about this 2-door strategy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I've heard a lot of what you and I were talking about beforehand, these like bros, the get 10 doors, 100 doors,
Yeah.
um, 2 doors. What the heck? Like, why 2 doors? How does that work?
Two doors really changed our lives initially. And I think and I credit the ability to retire my husband early to our initial two doors. So he was working a very stressful job as a psychotherapist in the Atlanta public school system. Shout out to Atlanta. But nevertheless, right, he got to see some really tragic things. And I saw it weighing on him. And as he started to help build out the operations and the systems inside of our business, and it gave him that breathing room to cutting back on that W 2 a little bit and then eventually walking away from that particular career, I really credit it to having those initial two doors. And of course, systems matter, right? I think it's I forget who said this, but we don't rise to the level of our goals. We really fall to the level of our systems. And so when he was able to walk away, it started a thought experiment for me. It's like, wait a minute, how powerful can this be for my burnt out medical professionals as well? Well, I shortly thereafter, after a couple of doors, I was able to walk away for my W 2. That was not my intention. We don't go into medicine to walk away, but according to the data, 30% of healthcare professionals in the year 2030 will have left the field altogether. And this is what I'm passionate about. I talk about it, but I'm sure this is prevalent with engineers and all of the other careers where we're finding it to be quite unbearable, doing more with less resources. But nevertheless, Elena inside of our community, she's a physician from Uzbekistan. She's here in the US as a nurse. With her two doors, she said what it was able to do for her was take her down from working full time and then charting till 2 in the morning and then having to drive back to work by 7 a.m. So think about that schedule, right? Now she just turned 15. She got a brand new little grandbaby. She is down to a zero point 0.5 FTE, meaning she works half time, a part time job. So instead of 40 hours a week, she's down to 20 hours a week. She gets to go dancing on Thursdays with Kenny, her husband. They do tango. And nevertheless, that is life changing. That is life changing. So at the end of the day, I don't fully expect, as a matter of fact, I don't recommend you go and rage quit your job like I did. Don't do that. We need our W 2s to secure some of these, better loans and funding products, really cheaper loans. But imagine having a little bit of breathing room like Dr. Gabby in our community. She's an OBGYN out of Tahoe. With her two doors, she was able to cut down to a zero point 0.2 FTE. So I am all in on my two-door strategy. I have seen it save lives, it's changing lives. That is what I'm all about. So let me define it for you and for the audience, Kenny. It
Hit
is
me.
exactly what you hear. It is two doors, two properties, two well positioned, two highly curated, two well designed properties that you kind of obsess over. You want to make sure you got it just right. And these properties, they range in our community. I'm just telling you my truth, right? So for those of you who are like, okay, she's out here buying $20 million properties, let me tell you my truth. They range from a purchase price of 325,000 to 750,000. That is my truth. That is my story. I'm sticking to it. Yes, you can go get $1 million doors. I don't know what the cash flow numbers are going to be looking like for that, but these are properties that pencil out. These are properties that are changing lives, and they're furnished. We furnish them. We put as much into them based off of our avatar, those who we want to serve, those who we care about. So we think it's really important to get really obsessed with those you're serving. Then you build, and you pour into this property in a way that they recognize that, you know what? Rachel knows me. She sees me. She understands my pain points. And
Yeah.
I feel like we went off on a tangent.
No,
Kenny.
no, 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 no. It's good. You defined it. You defined, and I think what people are gonna like about this 2 door strategy is
Mhm.
it's 2 doors. It's not 10 doors. It's 2 doors, which is super easy. And you know what? Like when I left my W 2 job, I had 2 doors. So
What?
yeah. So
This is
like
happening in real time, guys.
right.
No way.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking about that while you're talking. So that's I was like, wow, like yeah, it's 2 doors. Like, but
It's too
people are so
much.
so people are so focused on, like I've got to get to this next level like this other person. And they're chasing what these other people like these gurus or whatever, these guys who have hundreds of doors or whatever.
Yeah.
And the reality is when you understand your why, which is
Mm,
most people, it's to have more time freedom, that flexibility. Most people want to go tango on Thursday nights, right?
yeah.
It sounds like fun. So like
Yeah.
that, like if that's the goal, it's really not that much, to get there. You don't need to quit your W-2 at 2 doors. And I think that's probably aggressive for most people, but at the same time, like it could work out, but it's enough where um it can change your life and give you some time
Mhm.
back. I love what you said, like these medical professionals, these doctors, they're going to halftime hours, or I know you said point two, or is that 20%, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that's
Yes,
0.2 to
right.
20%.
Right.
0.5 FTE is half time, so
Right.
20 hours a week as opposed to 40 hours a week. Yeah.
That's a big deal. And that's a lot of time freedom. And I think too, that could make your job a lot more you could enjoy it more
Mm,
doing it that way,
absolutely.
and leverage that to get the loans that you need to eventually scale up to have something bigger. But 2 doors is easy in a sense, as long as you nail it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's just one of my big takeaways. It's just like, and you're right. The purchase prices, you start at 325.
yeah.
So I just did the P&L for my getting all the numbers and stuff together,
Yeah.
for my lake property in New York, and I bought that thing in 2022 for 350. It grossed, get this, it grossed $123,000 last year. A little bit crazy scenario, but like it's possible,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
I'm doing that in 2024, and it's not like, oh, this property was, I bought it at the height of interest rates. I have like a seven and three quarters interest rate on it at a DSCR. So like I bought it at the height of that, like the price of the house and everything was high. Like I did all that, and it still got that, gross revenue. Right? The cash flow is pretty insane on that thing. So it's like that's enough to change someone's life, you
Yeah.
know. And so 2 doors, I just love that. So it's enough. It's not necessarily you have to leave your W-2. You could if you nailed it perfectly. But at the same time, it's enough to change your life. I really like that. But the question though is, and I think a lot of people are struggling with this, is okay, cool. That sounds good and all, but like, how do you actually do it? Like, how do you
Mm,
find those opportunities? I obviously, I'm the markets guy, so I don't need to like
right.
we can talk about markets if we go on, but
Yeah.
like, what's the process? What do you recommend where people to start on this 2 door strategy?
That's a great question. What I've noticed that our community has been contending with a lot, Kenny, lately, and those who are especially new, they're looking at the interest rates. They're waiting on perfection to occur, right?
Hmm.
We have to take action, guys.
Yeah.
It's 2025. We just have to take action. And if we come across a deal that looks like it will pencil, let's move the process along, right? And so Kenny has resources there are data tools out there. I leverage something called the Crow methodology. It's where I just Rachel, I have no idea where to start. I don't know. And so I walk you through a process where you want to find properties or markets that you're connected to in some way, shape, or form, properties that you hear come up every now and then, and recommendations from your inner circle, the masterminds that you may be a part of, or colleagues, or properties that show up on lists, potentially markets that show up on lists, or word of mouth, right? So if you come up with a list of, say, a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen markets that might be of interest, there's nothing wrong with going straight in there, not editing yourself, and just marking down as many of those markets as possible. And from there, use Kenny's tool and share insights to dive in to see, well, what do the numbers look like, right? Because there's nothing like coming up with the Rosemary Beach market, and that sounds great. And then next thing you know, you look on SEO Insights, and then you look at the purchase pricing, and then it's out of pocket, right? So Starting off with a big list, I think that's great. Then we're going to whittle it down based off of our budget and based off of the revenue potential. Because for the two doors, you want to see at the end of the day a couple grand a month that is coming into your pocket, and that is the goal. So less than 1,500, I say I would not move forward with it personally. But that's my personal goal. Everyone has a different strategy. I've seen wild strategies out there, but understanding what your goal is and making sure that the numbers pencil out to meet you where your goals are, I think that's a great place to start.
I love that. There's a follow-up question to you, and this is opinion. There's not a right or wrong answer. I'm not looking for any. I'm just curious what your thoughts
Yeah.
are. Do you recommend people on their first property buy something that they would personally visit a lot, or more focus on like investment side?
I like places that you would visit, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
if all things being equal, I would say yes. I would like for it to be a place that you would visit, a place that you would be okay with
Yeah.
going to. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. For me, it kind of depends on the person, but I also agree with you because it people have a hard time figuring out like what you mentioned is basically the guest avatar. Oh my gosh, I can't. I was on a call. You know Alex Sabio.
Yes.
And
A
he
fellow healthcare professional.
there you go. Yeah, really cool guy out in California. And he was
Yeah.
telling me about his one of his students, and they went and decided to like add a pickleball court to their property in the Smokies. And he was just like, I just don't feel like that's right. Whereas
Mm,
like somebody else went and added a Nerf gun thing, and the two properties were like similar, and they're doing like way better than the one with the pickleball court. And where he's like, I don't really know why, but the only explanation is like who is coming there. And I was like, that's exactly it. Like, who is coming to the Smokies? It's families. It's not, young adults or, older people. Sure, they do go, but it's like who's the majority, who's the demographic. And it's
yeah.
really built around that guest avatar. And a lot of people struggle to understand that, and they end up
Yeah.
marketing to people like them. It's like, what would I
Yeah.
like? And you might not necessarily be the right fit. So if you're targeting markets that you would travel to, you're probably going to get your avatar right out the gate. So,
Yeah.
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 But
And you know what? And what's interesting about the Smokies, traditionally, it's been one of those like most more cost effective, vacation spots. So you may have a lot of blue collared folks there, right?
yes,
So we're not going to be putting cold plunge
no,
in the
yeah.
Smokies, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Obsessing over your
Imagine some redneck being like putting some like deer carcass or some like hunting thing in a cold plunge, like we gotta keep it cold.
This is a
Um,
great idea. The cold blood for the
yeah,
deer carcass.
yeah, that would be the Smokies or North Georgia. Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
Goodness.
but yeah, you're based. Do you still live in Atlanta?
Yeah, south
Okay,
of Atlanta. Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
right. All right. So one of the things too that kind of said, and we talked about this beforehand before we hit record, but um, I mean, is this possible in non-vacation markets too?
Absolutely. And so when I talk about the two doors specifically, if we were to really hone in on this particular strategy, yes, two short term rentals would definitely fit the bill. And short term rentals that are in vacation rental markets or touristic markets. However, there are short term rentals outside of vacation markets as well. Families are visiting, say, to attend a wedding or attend a funeral. They need a space to stay for a few nights out of the week, right? And so I have seen it work leveraging short term rentals in non vacation markets and suburban markets. I've seen it work leveraging midterm rentals as well. And those are the month to month stays. So that hybrid model. So
Mm,
your two doors can actually encompass two strictly short term rental properties or one short-term rental and a hybrid short-term midterm rentals or two midterm rentals. And in the non-vacation rental markets, you'll most likely see that hybrid of a midterm rental being introduced as opposed to vacation rental markets. In the vacation markets, what's interesting, if you're somewhere where it's nice and tropical and kind of sunny, you may attract midterm rental guests that are climate migrants, snowbirds is what they're
Yeah.
called as well. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. But the two doors, it works. It works in a variety of markets, leveraging again, leveraging and understanding who it is that you're serving, who is coming to that market, what are the traffic drivers to that market. Say you're in a market where it's not a vacation rental, but there are a lot of conventions, right? Getting really familiar with who's coming to the market, the purpose of their visit. And what I like is the occupancy rate that you share on the platform. As long as I see a pretty decent occupancy rate, it's an indicator to me, oh, people are actually traveling to this market. However, if I see an occupancy rate of like 10%, it's like, okay, nobody's coming here. As a matter of fact, I saw a property one of my clients sent me, and the occupancy rate was like 20% or so. And thankfully, it was like an hour away, and we're heading in that direction going to visit family. And so I drove by that market, and let me tell you, there was construction happening. But the fact that they were doubling down on building a tractor supply told me everything that I needed to know. And I thought to myself, okay, this is definitely a market with a lower occupancy rate. Can it still work there? Well, we got to understand, are there traffic drivers? We've got to understand that we're going to have to put in a lot of work
Seasonality.
to
Yeah.
take in
Seasonality.
seasonality. We got to understand, we got to market it a little bit differently and not just wait for a handout from Airbnb. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. That's 100. Yeah, that's very true. And okay. So one thing that popped in my head that's really interesting about your story. So I know you mentioned you quit your job a little bit early on, and we can talk about this too.
Yeah.
And from both of us have done the same thing, for different reasons and timing and everything. And I think we can have a good conversation around this. And people want to know is like, okay, cool. If you get two doors, at what point do you know I can cut back on my hours, or I can leave my job? It could be maybe you get more than two doors and you're making good money, but like, at what point do you have this realization that it is time?
Mm. That's a great question, Kenny. And I'm glad you're asking it, but I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that question because I come from like a background of having a lot of money trauma, growing up.
Yeah.
And so again, being that little girl from Haiti, just being overly protective of making sure that all my I's are dotted and all my T's are crossed, I could have probably quit 1 or 1.5 years prior to when I did, Kenny. But I was holding on for dear life and just working.
I think, but that a lot of people are like that. A lot. I mean, I could say that I could have said the same thing. So like,
Yeah.
I guess that's like the question is like, let's hear it. Like, at what moment? Tell us the moment that you knew I can do this. I can take the leap. What did it take for that?
Okay, so I knew you ever have that feeling, and it's kind of sad because I had crafted a space in my industry. I became one of the top 3 people in the world for informatics healthcare. Like I knew how to build systems. I come from medicine. That's my degree, but then my training, I learned SQL. That's why I'm such a data nerd. Like when you sent me a spreadsheet, it's like, okay, this is like speaking my love language right now, Kenny. Does he know that this
SQL, I'll just let you in the database. You have your
let's
way.
let's go all day. So I love me a good spreadsheet. So I had crafted and carved this area out for myself. And so needless to say, Kenny, coming from burnout, like our facility was actually held at gunpoint at one point. I left there and I had the most cushiest position in the world. Cushion, like my friends would go to work crying on the phone, crying in their coffee. And I'm like, girl, you gotta do something. Like for real.
That's so, oh my goodness. Yeah, I believe it. It's just, yeah.
Just burnt to a crisp. And here I am with the most cushiest position in the world. And I felt like, Rachel, you should be grateful. Rachel, what about Mel? Rachel, what about so and so? How dare you even think about stepping out of line, right?
Yeah.
You should be so grateful you got, but there was something inside of me, Kenny. And I kid you not, that like I felt so uncomfortable. I was ready to jump out of my skin every single day. And I can't explain it, but it was almost like, I believe in God. I felt like God was saying, you were made for more. You were made for impact. You are on a mission. And he would not let it up. He would not let up. He would, and I would get promotions after promotion and a VP of this and the titles and just climbing the corporate ladder 10 steps at a time, sitting at the table, had a whole seat at the table carved out. And I felt itchy. I felt like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. And I remember having a conversation with a recruiter who was recruiting me to head up some type of software company for what's the I'm gonna forget his name and it's gonna be so bad and this is gonna go viral. The Virgin Airlines guy.
Oh, I don't know. You're fine. Don't
Okay, okay, great. All right. So his company, they wanted a healthcare IT person to work with them to create software. So I was getting recruited for that. I was getting recruited for a huge, big association. Like, talk about feather in my cap. And then the recruiter, he would follow up with me every Monday to let me know where we are in the process. And you know what? I kept, whenever we had a conversation, I was like, oh, you wouldn't believe this deal that I just analyzed. So I would talk to him about real estate every single time. And he was laughing, right? He was like, oh my gosh. He goes, do you really want this job? I said, yes, of course I want it. I want it. I'm all in. I want it. But let me show you this house.
Yeah.
And so he said, okay, I'm going to submit your final paperwork. You're the number one. You would have to fly to DC to interview because it was a big, big deal. DC, all the things. And so that night he says to me, okay, I'm going to submit this paperwork next Tuesday. Okay. But I need to speak to you next Tuesday. Tuesday, call me and give me the thumbs up and let me know it's a go. That was 3 years ago. I have yet to speak with him.
He's still waiting somewhere. He's waiting every Tuesday. He's got a reminder. He's like, "Will Rachel call?" That's awesome.
And that's where I realized, okay, my heart was maybe adjacent, healthcare adjacent, but it was no longer in healthcare. It was no longer, I did not feel that I could go to Washington, D.C. and make the kind of impact that I initially thought I was going to make. I was going to disrupt healthcare. Like oh my gosh. No, I was out. I was so burnt. I was out. So I wrote down on a piece of paper and I had it plastered on my door my quit date. Say it was January of 2023. I was going to quit December of 2023. I put up my quit date. It's going to, get my house in order, go through all of my pillars. I wanted to look at my finances. I want to look at my insurance. I want to look at my burn rate to understand, okay, how quickly would I burn through my savings? I want to look at the income, evaluate all of that. And so that's what I did. I mapped that out. I spoke with some therapists because there's an identity crisis as well, right? I'm the trophy child. She got the doctorate. So that was scary to me. Like, what would society say? I'm very much grew up like we have a French lineage. So it's like society matters. Everyone's looking. What would society say? As a matter of fact, side story, my parents didn't know I quit until a year later because I was afraid of getting spanked. Different story. That's for my therapist. But nevertheless, what would society say? Right? And so I put that on my door as my quit date, wrote it down. Guys, write your quit date down. I wrote it down. Again, quit date was, I wrote down January. Quit date is scheduled for December. I spoke with my therapist. She says, okay, we're going to go through this whole process. You're going to walk across the street. You're going to cry out the old identity, the doctor identity, and inhale the new entrepreneur identity. We're going to break it down into phases. Q1, we're going to do these mental exercise. Q2, I was like, great. February, I got an email. I quit there that same day. Got an email. I rage quit.
Well, I want to read the email now. Yeah.
It was about some type of stupid initiative where people were going to be working harder and not getting paid for it. I quit.
Yeah. HR is like, hey, we need to watch this training. Nope. That's just an about thing now. Yeah.
Rage quit. Oh my God. Well, don't recommend it, but yeah, here we are.
Quit. Yeah. Well, I think, what's really interesting about that story, a lot of people that are in similar situations where they're burnt out, they're tired, and they're W-2s.
Yeah.
They want to quit, and maybe they have the means to quit, or maybe they want to have the means to quit, but they just they're almost waiting for like God or Jesus to come down and like tell them it's time, like get out, like like yeah, I don't know, like they're waiting for this like grand awakening of, and
Yeah.
it doesn't work like that. For me, I had an experience where I went to a mastermind meeting, and everyone there was a small mastermind, about 10 people, and everybody there, literally, they were all like entrepreneurs and in real estate full time. I was kind of like the odd duck out with the W-2 corporate job. And I just remember like going home that day, and I had taken time off from work, and I had to get home, and they all stayed an extra day to go look at
Mm.
properties and go do stuff. And it just ate me alive. I was absolutely jealous. And I wasn't envious of necessarily them, but the life they had carved out for themselves. And I was like, I want that so bad. And I'm having to get in an Uber, go to the airport, go home so I can go to work the next day. And they're out there like looking at properties, striking up deals, partnerships together. And I'm like, like FOMO. And it's just like at that moment, I had this realization that I had to leave my job. And I was like, I'm going to do it in 5 years. But then I ended up quitting sooner than that. I quit in like 2 years, from that meeting. And so for me, like, it's the same thing. Like these people are the same thing. Like, put a date down. You'll probably kill it. Like, you'll crush it. You'll be like ready way before. And you'll already be in that mentality of I'm already quitting, that acceptance. And that will already be there. And I think that when you do that, it helps. And then you realize, like, what am I doing? This is stupid.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Since you've quit, number one, have there been any regrets?
I wouldn't say there are any regrets. It actually took me over a year to want to reach back out to some fellow coworkers, like really sweet people. Like I said, I had carved out a really great space for myself. But I had to kind of cold quit because I don't like goodbyes. I don't like too much emotion or prompting circumstance. So the only thing is, I think my only regret, would be maybe not building the bridge as clearly as I could have for those who would want to connect afterwards. So far, fast forward to today, I do have a mastermind coaching program for busy doctors. 2 of my students are doctors that were my former bosses.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Right? So they at least had a little bit more of a relationship with me to know that they could reach out and say, hey, I know it's been a while, but could you show me what you're doing? Because I see you on social media. And when I saw that, I think that is my biggest regret, Kenny. Maybe I should have dropped a few more breadcrumbs for all the others who maybe were wanting what I was able to accomplish.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a path for me to, I don't know, go back and take the elevator back down and get everyone else. I know corporate is probably listening to this and loving this conversation, but nevertheless,
yeah.
not. But I would say that would be my only regret, trying to find a way to, share a little bit. Because I think, sharing is caring.
Yeah. And if you're corporate, please do me a favor, like and subscribe to this. Oh
goodness.
No, but like
we're making trouble today. We're making so much trouble today.
That's the regret. But do you regret? Could you ever go back?
No.
Yep. That's exactly how I felt too. I was telling my wife, asked me that. She's like, what are you going to do after short-term rentals? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, they don't just end. Like, it's like it's real estate investing. Like, we're just going, we might invest
in hotels, buy an island. Tell your wife.
Buy an island. I'll buy an island. Yeah. So that's awesome. Man, this has been such a good conversation. And I love how these things go. You start with something and then you're like, you know what? Like, I think we hit something here. Because a lot of people need to hear what you're saying. I know a lot of, especially doctors. And I didn't mention this at the beginning. I guess let me go ahead and ask this kind of question as we're kind of wrapping up here. But so other physicians, that they got help groups. What's for short-term rentals? How do they get in contact with you if they want to learn more about, your coaching and just I know you have a mastermind or a group that
Yep.
gets together.
Mhm.
What's your so tell us about that so we can yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I have an end-to-end concierge coaching program where I have the frameworks and the workflows to help you not only understand how to find the real estate, how to fund it as well, furnish it, and fill it up with your ideal guest, the guest that you know, like, you love, you trust, you want to serve. And if you go to 75gems.com, that's 75gems.com, it's a list of markets and cities that I'm looking to invest in, and it'll provide you some free training and resources. And that's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. So 75 gems and as a little gem, I think it right there. Oh, there. Anyway, your background thing, I think that's pretty cool.
Yep.
You got a light?
Yep.
Your
It's really
studio?
on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Uh-huh.
Cool. Well, Rachel, last question I want to ask you as we're wrapping up here. What's one way people can cash flow positive with their STRs?
One of the most important ways, I believe, to cash flow positive and kind of stand out from the crowd in whatever market you're in is to get really laser focused on who it is that you're serving.
Mm,
Once you understand your ideal guest avatar, their pain points, you walk a mile in their shoes, you have already answered the problems that they are looking to solve. They do not mind spending a little bit more with you because they know, you know what, that high chair in the photo, that baby, I'm drawing a blank. My kids are 18 and such, but the baby bath, all of those things where you've thought of that avatar. You've not only secured the property and positioned it in a way that will meet their needs, but you have the photos to prove it.
mm.
Once they see that, why would they chance staying in another place that was kind of thrown together when you have the answer? So they will see the value. It's going to be value based. So we can squeeze a few more dollars out of every single booking by really understanding who they are, speaking to them in such a way that makes us competent, that makes it feel like, oh, yeah, she knows exactly what it is that I'm going through, whether it's a family who's relocating to an area and need a place to stay for 2 weeks, right? And you can talk about the local plant that's hiring and say, hey, you happen to be working at that one or the other. And so that familiarity really draws them in because at the end of the day, they're no offense, they're pretty promiscuous. They're shopping here, shopping there, shopping here. But if you have set up your listing, that's kind of like that initial handshake, right? And then you're speaking to them like you know them. They're going to trust you, and they're going to be willing to open their wallets a little bit more, and then you can cash flow positive, my friend.
Whoa, there it is. I need to ring a bell every ding as somebody says cash flow positive. Anyway. Cool, Andy. Well, Rachel, honestly, this has been I wish this could go on. This has been a treat, pleasure. I need to have you come back on later this year to talk
Yeah.
about some other stuff. So if you'll be another guest, but thank you so much again. You've shared a lot of good stuff. So thank you for sharing your story and opening up with us today.
Oh, thank you, Kenny. Thank you for having me.
And if you've enjoyed this episode, honestly, normally I tell people to like and subscribe, so you should do that. But honestly, I feel like we need to share this with people who are thinking about quitting their jobs.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
look, you might be closer than you think, or just cutting back.
Yeah.
Like sharing that experience and hearing those stories of people who do it and
Mhm.
how they did it is so important to
Yeah.
understanding how you can do it too. So, thank you so much, Rachel, and everyone who's listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you on the next episode of Cash Flow Positive.